In this lesson, we'll learn how to create and use conditional statements in Lua. In programming, conditional statements are used to handle a bulk of the logic for your code. They minimally consist of at least an if clause, followed by then and then end. Within Lua, the parentheses after the if are optional. Let's pretend that we're checking the weather. So we'll create a local variable called weather, and we'll set it equal to rainy. So if it's rainy, we might want to use an umbrella. So if the weather is rainy, then, and we'll print to the console, print, we need an umbrella. Okay, so what we're doing here is we're checking the variable called rainy, and the double equals is strict equality. So does it equal the string rainy, which it does on line 1? And if it does, we'll print we need an umbrella. So let's take a look at this in the simulator and bring up the terminal. And there it is, we need an umbrella. Now if we change the variable assignment to sunny and go back, then we see that nothing prints, and that's because weather does not equal rainy. We haven't coded yet something to happen if it doesn't equal rainy. In this case, we could use an else, and then we'll follow it with end. Else print. And we don't necessarily know that it is sunny, rainy, snowy, or whatever, so we'll write we know it is not rainy, and head back to the simulator. And we know it's not rainy, but we don't necessarily know what the weather is. So if we wanted to create a conditional branch that would check for the weather to be rainy or the weather to be sunny, we could use an else if. And notice here that else if is smashed together. There's no space between the else and the if. And we need to use the keyword then after that. Else if weather double equals sunny. Then no umbrella required. Okay, and we'll check the terminal, and there it is. And if we put here weather equals cold, then in this case, the weather is neither rainy nor sunny, so we won't print anything to the terminal. So if we wanted to, we could include an additional clause, but we won't. We'll keep it here to an if and else if. So here we're testing strings. We can also test numbers. So let's create a variable called temperature. And we'll set it equal to 70. And let's change the weather to dry. So now let's change the clause. We'll delete all of our clauses so far. So if the weather is dry and the temperature is greater than 75 degrees, then we'll print it will be toasty. And so I'm an American, so I'm using Fahrenheit here. Else if the weather is dry and the temperature is less than or equal to 75, then we'll print it will be comfortable. So what we're doing here is we're testing two different conditions. One is if the weather variable is equal to the string dry, and the other is if the temperature variable is greater than 75, which it isn't. And so we have another branch, which is if weather's dry, which it is, and if temperature is less than or equal to 75, then we will fire that branch. Let's take a look. And we see that it will be comfortable. Now, since we don't quite know if we're dealing with Celsius or Fahrenheit or any other measure, we could do something like this. We could test for existence. We'll create a variable called system, and then at the end, here we've just created a forward reference, so it's really nil. So if not system, that is, if system isn't defined, then we'll print, is it Celsius or Fahrenheit? And we'll load this again. And it's comfortable, and then we don't know if it's Celsius or Fahrenheit because the system variable is not set. And this is often a good technique to determine whether or not an object exists or not. You simply check for its reference, and if it doesn't exist, you can check for it not existing. So use the keyword not and the reference, and then you can fire code. And this is really good to make sure that you're not calling methods or functions or trying to affect something that doesn't exist. This ends our lesson on creating and using conditional statements in Lua.